I wanted to talk to you today about foster care. According to Oklahoma's Foster's Initiative website, there are approximately 9,600 children in state's custody in Oklahoma today. There are about 5,243 approved foster homes in Oklahoma. So as you can see, the numbers don't match up, and there are hundreds of children in state's custody without a home. And that's really sad to me. That's one reason why I choose to talk about foster care today. A story that has always bothered me is one of my best friends was a social worker, and she recalled a story of taking children out of a home in the night and not finding a foster home for them. She had to leave the children in her office at night to sleep and come back for them in the morning. Unfortunately, that happens a lot. And I think that's really sad, and that's another reason why I want foster care to be highlighted. One of the ways that I help out and I'm involved with foster care is through an agency called Meadows of Hope. There are 19 different foster care agencies in Oklahoma, including DHS. And every month I volunteer to watch kids at a science museum in town. They have a grant for foster children to come and play for a couple of hours while the parents get a much needed break. And I think that's really neat. Another way that I help out is I babysit whenever I'm needed for a couple of families, and I offer respite care whenever I can, whenever is needed. So a really cool story. This weekend, a friend of mine contacted me and said that there was another foster mom who was struggling with a new placement. They've had 3 little boys for 2 weeks now, and one of the little boys was just overwhelming them. So she asked if I could watch him for the weekend. So of course I said yes. And turns out my family and I had a really good time with this little boy. He was the sweetest little thing. We were able to give him much needed one-on-one attention and just encourage him to use his words and to communicate and not make as many noises that would be frustrating like he was doing with his foster mom. So by the end of the weekend, we had worn him out. We took him to a football game. My boys played basketball with him, and he just had a terrific time. But the foster parents were very thrilled and more relaxed when they came back to pick him up. And I was so glad that I could help and that my family could help that way. It's really encouraging to know that there are people who will help. Another way that we help with foster care is through a local organization called the Hope House. And the Hope House provides clothing and necessities and toiletries for foster kids. So foster families all over the state can come to the Hope House on a certain day of the month and shop in their house and get clothes that are needed for new foster kids, or seasonal clothes and shoes, diapers, whatever's needed. And that is a really, really neat resource in town for foster parents. Our church helps out by helping them clean and organize and restock the clothes and shoes and jackets. And it's really cool. On their Facebook page, they just redid all of the clothing shelves, and they put costumes out for kids so they could come and pick out a costume, and that was really cool. Another way to help out in foster care is through CASA. CASA is court-appointed special advocates. Basically, these people volunteer their time with children, going over their case and really getting to know the child and being an advocate in court for the child. I think that's really, really cool. I've heard an amazing story of how a CASA worker saved a family. A friend of mine who was really big in CASA shared a story with me that one of the CASA workers had found a note that was torn off on the corner from a corner of a paper, and it was just a phone number. And it had been sitting in a file for years. These 3 children had been taken out of their home, and parental rights had been terminated, and they didn't have anywhere else to go. They were bouncing from foster home to foster home. So this CASA worker gets a hold of this phone number and asks the social worker, like, does she know anything about it? Has she called the number? Whose number is it? And the social worker didn't know anything about it. All she knew was that it had been in the file since the beginning. So the CASA worker calls this phone number, and turns out that the phone number belonged to a grandmother in another state who had been looking for the children for 5 years. That was just amazing to me. If that CASA worker had never gone through that file and found that phone number, those children still would have been displaced and not had their forever home with family. That was so cool. So I just encourage you to see what you can do. Can you babysit? Can you donate clothing? Can you donate some time? Can you donate a lot of time and be a CASA worker? Children out there need us. They need safety. They need to know that people care, especially in a world where they didn't find care. So I hope that my story of foster care stuff encouraged you, and I hope to see you out there.